Coming to you from the mountains and the plain, the only conservative voices brave enough to push back. This is the Conservative Daily Podcast with Joe Otto.
That's what the Second Amendment was designed to do. If you're going to do something to nullify or take away my rights under the Constitution, come get it.
Max McGuire.
When you look at politicians on the left, they need to convince people that they are victims.
A resistance to the resistance. And now your hosts, Joe Otto and Max McGuire.
And welcome back to another edition of the Conservative Daily Podcast. As always, my name is Max McGuire.
And this is Joe Otto. Sorry, I forgot.
It's all right. It's all right. Today, we were going to talk...
reading this whole thing about Biden. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, we were going to talk more about the coronavirus, but something just broke in the last hour. Audio that allegedly, we have to say allegedly because this is just breaking right now and it hasn't gone through the vetting. Audio allegedly of the call between Joe Biden, the multiple calls between Joe Biden and the president of Ukraine. These were the calls where Joe Biden pressured Ukraine into firing their prosecutor, the prosecutor that happened to be investigating the company that his son worked at. We have on these audio, we have someone who allegedly, it sounds a lot like John Kerry, prepping the call, demanding that Ukraine bow down to Joe Biden's wishes. We have Joe Biden talking through it. We have the Ukrainian president saying that he has asked for the resignation, even though there's no evidence that the prosecutor did something wrong. And then at the end, we have, allegedly, I have to say allegedly, because it's just coming out right now. We have the video of with the audio recording of Joe Biden saying, okay, you did what I want. Now I will sign and approve the $1 billion loan request. Now, there's a reason that we call Joe Biden Quid Pro Joe, because this was the only quid pro quo in that entire impeachment sham. Trump caught Biden in a quid pro quo, and the Democrats, through projection, like what they always do, they tried to turn it around on Trump. So we're going to play this audio in its entirety. We're going to cut in and out because it's actually a couple of different dates, a couple of different calls all spliced into one clip. We'll cut in and out. It's 11 minutes long. We're not going to play all 11 minutes at once. But first, before we get into it, I want to play the audio of Joe Biden admitting to doing this. That's important because we have this audio of the call, allegedly the call, but we also have Joe Biden admitting on camera that he did this. So before we get into this new bombshell leak, we're going to play that. But before we do, please do hit the share button. This is big news. We want as many people to see this as possible. So please do hit the share button on this video. If you're watching on Facebook or live stream, please do hit the share button. We want to get this everywhere because this is absolute bombshell revelation. First, let's play the clip of Joe Biden bragging about it at the U.S. Council on Foreign Relations. Cut 1.
I remember going over convincing our team or others to convincing that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
So I want to apologize for Joe Biden's language. That was very uncalled for.
But it was a dog. He was talking about.
Yeah, he was calling about a female dog. Okay, so that's Joe Biden admitting to it. He's already admitted that he did this. Now let's play the audio tape that just leaked out today. I'll say allegedly because it's very, very fresh. But when you hear it, you have a hard time believing that it's anyone else. So this first part of the clip, I'll set it up. It's actually, it's allegedly takes place on December 3rd, 2015, and it's between John Kerry and Petro Poroshenko. Let's play cut 2. takes a second to get into it.
But before Vice President Biden comes, I just wanted to try to urge you to see if there's a way to get by this problem of replacing the Prosecutor General, Shokin, because from our perception, he's blocked the cleanup of the Prosecutor General's office, and I know the Vice President is very concerned about it, and I think it'd be good to try to have some resolution of that before the Vice President comes, if it's possible, and have real clarity as to the steps that we're going to take forward. I think his visit and his speech to the Rada are a good opportunity to showcase your successes as we continue forward.
And I doubt that any other general prosecutor can do that. But we provide absolutely transparent
And this is Poroshenko, allegedly.
Commission. And the procedure was widely accepted, both inside the country, including my opponents, all the NGO, all the parliamentary forces. They widely accepted as an absolutely transparent and effective situation. And as I promised, the very next day, before the 1st of December, exactly as I promised to Vice President Biden, this person who was selected by the Selection Commission as appointed. Now, all of us should understand that the Prosecutor General Office has no any opportunity under the law to make any cases against corruption, because it immediately goes already from the 1st of December, the day before yesterday, to the new Anti-Corruption Bureau and the new Anti-Corruption Prosecutor Office. And I was very proud that Jean-Claude Juncker, Angela Merkel, François Hollande, and everybody welcomed it as a very strong position of Anti-Corruption Prosecutor and General Prosecutor Office. For the prosecutor position and for Inspector General, I am also proud that exactly as we agreed with your Minister of Justice guy and your embassy, the Office of Inspector General is already established. It is coordinated not by General Prosecutor, but the Deputy of General Prosecutor, Mr. Sakvarilidze, exactly as we agreed with the Vice President and with the Ambassador. For the other continuation with the Prosecutor General Shokin and other things, I think I will speak with the Vice President Biden, and I doubt that it would be theoretically even possible to make any decision without any arguments before.
Vice President's going to take up with you, and we'll have a more detailed discussion about it.
Thank you, John.
All right, let's pause it right there. So that is allegedly a conversation between John Kerry and Petro Poroshenko that preceded. It was basically the call that was going to precede the call between Poroshenko and Biden. And as you hear, Kerry's very open about it. You need to fire the prosecutor. Biden's going to want to talk to you about this. And Poroshenko says, well, he's going to need to talk to him before he does that. This is incredible because obviously it's clear, and you can hear that it seems like someone's eating on the other side. This is being recorded on the Ukrainian side. It's obvious because when you hear the Poroshenko talk, you can hear the echo of the room, whereas when Kerry, or as you're about to hear Joe Biden talk, you hear it through the phone. So this is obviously recorded on that side, and we know who allegedly leaked this. It was a Ukrainian MP named Andriy Derkach. Probably pronounced that wrong. I don't speak Ukrainian, but a Ukrainian MP is the one who has leaked this out. So that was the first call between John Kerry and Petro Poroshenko. Let's now keep playing, and we're going to get into the first call between Poroshenko and Biden.
The Situation Room is...
Hello, Joe Biden.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Your call is reconvened.
Petro, can you hear me?
Yeah, now it's better.
I can hear you better too. I'm sorry.
No problem.
You were saying, I missed what you were saying.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm very happy to be here. Second, this is very valuable for me that you find out a time for me even in Minnesota. And I'm dreaming some days to be with you in Minnesota.
That's easy, man. I tell you what, I'd like to be with you instead of Minnesota right now. But go
All
ahead.
right, let's pause it right there. So that alone should be enough for Joe Biden to lose Minnesota. If we're being honest, he just said he would rather be in Ukraine than Minnesota.
Yeah.
That right there should lose him Minnesota, which Trump almost won last time around, which is technically a swing state. That should be playing nonstop in Minnesota as we go into this campaign season. Let's keep going with the clip.
The third, I have some positive and negative news. I will start with the positive news.
Well, good.
Joe, I have a second positive news for you. Yesterday, I met with the General Prosecutor Shokin.
Yes.
And despite of the fact that we didn't have any corruption charges, we don't have any information about he doing something wrong, I especially asked him, no, it was the day before yesterday, I especially asked him to resign as his position as a state person, and despite of the fact that he has a support in the parliament. And as a finish of my meeting with him, he promised me to give me the statement on resignation. And 1 hour ago, he bring me the written statement of his resignation.
Great.
And this is my second step for keeping my promises.
All right, let's pause it right there. So
Nothing to see here, Max. Move
nothing
on,
to see here, right? Nothing to see here. It's allegedly. I'll throw out there allegedly, but this is a audio recording of the president of Ukraine saying that I know I promised you I'd do this, and even though we never found that the prosecutor did anything wrong, I've still asked for his resignation.
For him.
Yes, and then you hear Joe Biden in the background saying, "Good, great." I agree. This should be it. This should be it.
It should be, but
the fact that you hear the people in the situation room setting up the call too, in my mind, just reiterates that this is very likely a legitimate audio recording. Joe, is there any way that the mainstream media can bury this?
Let me see. Yes. They act with impunity because they have immunity. They operate as one, Max. They all operate.
They do. Yeah.
So we act like we're surprised. We act like we're surprised that they smile on camera and then they do whatever they want. You know why they don't like Trump? Do you know why they don't?
Because he's not in their club. Because he threatens their very hold on power.
He opted out.
Yeah.
He opted out of the quote unquote ruling class. He's a billionaire that literally has for years been involved in and been around all the players, right?
Yeah.
He knows all the bodies are buried, and he opted out.
Yeah.
He basically said, look, I personally think you guys are absolutely terrible, right?
Yeah.
And so he just decided that he was finally going to just stand up to him. He had enough. Right? Here's a guy that, by the way, was had the number one show with The Apprentice on ABC, right? Or NBC, excuse me.
NBC, yeah, NBC.
Has received every minority award that is out there.
Now he won didn't he win an award with Rosa Parks?
Yeah.
And Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
For helping the African American community. I mean, he was never called a racist until he ran for president. He was never called corrupt until he ran for president. They'll throw anything at the wall to try and make it stick. But when you get an audio recording like this of Joe Biden talking to the president of Ukraine, and the president of Ukraine saying, I asked for the prosecutor's resignation, even though he did nothing wrong. I kept my promise to you. And Joe Biden, you hear him in the background saying, good, great. And now we know that this prosecutor was investigating Joe Biden's son. This is the first conversation that Joe Biden has had with Poroshenko about this. That last call you heard was February 18th, 2016. The next clip we're going to get to is 4 days later, March 22nd, 2016. Joe Biden is awfully involved in Ukrainian politics, right? He said, he was just doing his job. He's awfully involved in the internal workings of Ukrainian politics. It's really hard to argue that he wasn't making these calls, at least partially worried about his son, who was under investigation by the prosecutor that he demanded to be fired. And now we have it on audio. I mean, it's stunning.
Hey, if they go low, we have to go lower.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate to say it, but they only know one way, right? They only know one way, and that is to play dirty. So if they're going to play dirty, the bad part about that is that most people that are not sociopaths, right? And that would be, there's quite a few sociopaths that run in politics, but the people that aren't sociopaths just don't want to go low.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we've got to train ourselves that, there's a means to an end. As long as we are willing to, recognize that, hey, you have to fight fire with fire, we'll come out the other end a whole lot better as a country.
Yeah. So that call was February 18, 2016. This next call isn't 4 days later. It's a month later, March 22nd, 2016. Josh, if you can fast forward 20 seconds, there's some dead air. Fast forward 20 seconds and then start up the clip again.
Joe Biden, how are you?
Very well indeed. All the time when I hear your voice, it's a great pleasure for me.
Press 1.
Well, I'm on Air Force 2, and I think we're going to stay connected. We just took off, and I'm hoping this connection will stay open. Assuming that there is a new government and a new prosecutor general, I am prepared to do a public signing of the commitment for the $1 billion. Again, I'm not suggesting that that's what you want or don't want. I'm just suggesting that that's what we're prepared to do. And again, it wouldn't be finalized until, the IMF pieces are written.
Extremely strong motivation. One of the possible candidates was leader of my faction, Lutsenko, who is the public figure. If you think that the political motivated figure would be not very good from your point of view, I recall this proposal. I do not propose, because nobody knows that I want to propose Lutsenko. In this situation, I take all the political motivated figures out from this process.
All right, well, look, let me when you and I finish speaking, let me huddle with my team, talk over what you and I just talked about. I agree with you. There is a sense of urgency here.
Wow.
Hey, Mr. President, Joe Biden.
All right, let's pause it right there. So that was the March 22nd.
Unbelievable. This is unbelievable. The more we actually hear, the more disgusting I become over this whole thing.
So that last clip we heard, it's Joe Biden doing the other half of the quid pro quo, saying that if you've done everything I've asked, I am prepared to do the public signing of the $1 billion. Then he adds the caveats like, well, if that's what you want or don't want, I'm not going to suggest that that's what you want, right? You can see his inner lawyer kicked in a little bit there. And then you hear Poroshenko say, this is very strong motivation. It's a quid pro quo. And Poroshenko saying, well, this is who I propose to pick. If you do not like this, I will let you decide who I should pick if you think it's too political. Joe, Biden is involved in the inner workings with a quid pro quo. They're now bouncing ideas off of who to nominate. You want to talk about foreign meddling in another country's affairs? This is at the top of that list. What the hell is Joe Biden doing on the phone, having names bounced at him on who should be the next inspector general or general prosecutor of Ukraine? He shouldn't be doing this.
It's almost as if they're literally, the vice president is meddling in foreign affairs, right?
Well, listen,
with the sovereignty of another nation.
Yeah. Well, listen, we've done that as a country for decades, right? You don't have to go too far to find. We put bullets in people's head if we didn't like the kind of government they were running, right? We assassinated political candidates if we thought that they would be anti-American. So we've meddled in foreign affairs for our entire history, right? But to hear Biden, and again, that's only the second call. We have a couple more calls to play. To hear Biden calling every month to check the status of this. That, okay, you're gonna fire him. You're gonna hire someone. I want to be able to decide who you're hiring, and then I'm prepared to make the signing to give you $1 billion loan guarantee. It's you can't ignore this. This is the bombshell. And again, it's gonna have to get vetted and verified. It was pushed out by a Ukrainian MP. It was published today by Zero Hedge, who's done a very good job of publishing leaks like this in the past. And you listen to this, it sounds like Joe Biden. It sounds like Poroshenko, and it's obviously being recorded on the Ukrainian side. So we have another 5 minutes of this, but it's broken into a couple clips, I think. Or actually, I think it's just one big 5-minute clip. So
let's do a 5-minute clip.
Well, this is one of the big ones. This is
5 minutes. That's a long time to listen to Joe Biden.
I know. Well, let's play the clip. We promise we play it in its entirety, and then we'll talk about it, and we'll take some callers as well. So if you want to get on the conversation,
and share,
and make sure you hit the share button. Hit the share button on this video.
And there's people who can't find the share button. So if you can't find the share button, just click on the actual podcast. And when you click on the podcast, it'll actually have a share button. You can hold a watch party in there as well.
Yeah. So hit that share button, because this is bombshell news, and the mainstream media is going to black it out. It's not 5 minutes. It's only just 4 minutes long. Let's play the last bit.
JoeBiden.info. If you
yeah. All right, Josh. Let's play the last bit of the clip.
As usual, when I hear your voice. Thank you.
Well, you are doing very well. Congratulations on getting the new prosecutor general. I know there's a lot more that has to be done, but I really think that's good, and I understand you're working with the rod in the coming days on a number of additional laws to secure the IMF. But congratulations on installing the new prosecutor general. It's going to be critical for him to work quickly to repair the damage Shokin did. And I'm a man of my word. And that now that the new prosecutor general is in place, we're ready to move forward in signing that new $1 billion loan guarantee. And I don't know how you want to go about that. I'm not going to be able to get to Kyiv anytime soon, meaning next month or so. And I don't know whether you could either sign it with our ambassador, or if you came here, we could sign it, or if you want, we're inviting Groisman here later. I'm going to be talking to him later this morning, not for that purpose. We're inviting him to Washington, and so I'll leave it up to you as to how you want that done and when you want it done.
First of all, thank you very much indeed for these words of support. Believe me that it was a very tough challenge and very difficult job, and Mrs. Timoshenko and Mr. Leshko faction tried to break this, because we not only voted for the new prosecutor general, which we do in a very short period of time, within 1 day we changed the law. By the way, in this law, we presenting the new structure of the General Prosecutor Office, including the General Inspection, as we agreed.
That's real.
And the second thing, I immediately invited Lutsenko and said that he should contact your embassy, and I would be very pleased if you would have a certain person who can come either from Washington or whenever. We have here, I don't remember his name, the Ukrainian origin American prosecutor. He is a little bit old. I sent to the Jeffrey his name. and he was ready to come and to be assistant and advisor. With a very good experience in the American system, and he can be the person of trust with the new prosecution system. I think this is exactly the right time to do that, and if he is still ready to come and to cooperate from the very first step, from the very first minute of the new prosecutor, that is exactly what I'm looking for.
Well, let me get in contact with the Justice Department and pursue that. I'll get his name and let me find out where that is, because it is in our interest, obviously, to provide professional assistance as quick as we can so this gets up and started in the right direction. So I will move on that as soon as we hang up. I'll put that in train and I'll get back to you as to what I'm able to do.
Absolutely. Second thing, thank you very much indeed. This is exactly what I'm looking for. The second thing is that I want to thank you that you give me your word that immediately when we change the legislation and I appoint the new prosecutor general, and it would be Yuri Lutsenko, as we agreed on our previous meeting in Washington, and when it happened, we can have this long guarantee, and thank you very much.
So that's the end.
That's it.
That's the end. And that last couple minutes, the reason I wanted to play that in its entirety is because that is the real bombshell. That you give me your word that immediately when we change the legislation and I appoint the new prosecutor general, and it would be Yuri Lutsenko, as we agreed on in our previous meeting, I guess he means call, and when it happens, we can have this loan guarantee. And thank you very much. Joe, the reason I think that it's really important to play this whole clip is because it was presented that Joe Biden, from a top-down approach, was pressuring Ukraine because we had an interest in making sure that Ukraine wasn't corrupt.
Right.
What I hear when I hear this call is
that we
Joe
were corrupting Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, we were corrupting Ukraine, right? But beyond that, I hear Joe Biden becoming intimately involved with the Ukrainian legal system.
Right.
What? I cannot imagine a vice president getting that involved in something unless he has a serious personal stake in this, right? That's for the underlings. That's for the deputy secretaries to take care of. And they work it all the way up, and then they give it to the vice president, and he agrees to it. But what you hear through all these clips is you hear John Kerry presenting this like, you're going to need to fire this guy. Biden's not going to approve unless you fire it. Biden makes the demand. Biden then makes the offer. Poroshenko then says, okay, I agree to fire him, even though he did nothing wrong. And then at the end, you hear Poroshenko, the Ukrainian president, you hear Poroshenko saying, I've done everything you've asked. Will you keep your promise and agree to give us the loan guarantee now? This is quid pro quo.
Yeah.
Quid pro Joe.
Quid pro Joe.
It's right there.
Not this Joe, the other Joe.
Yeah, not you, the other Joe. This is quid pro quo Joe Biden. Right there.
We have a constitutional crisis going on right now. We have a accountability issue going on right now. And frankly, I don't know why it's taking them so long to serve up justice. I don't actually know why. I don't know why these people have not been arrested. I don't know why there hasn't been an investigation. Actually, I do, because there's so much graft and corruption that happens on the Hill, and there's so many scratch your back, I'll scratch my back, that everyone knows that they don't have unclean hands. Everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you ask, where's the investigation? Donald Trump asked for the investigation. Donald Trump learned about this, said that sounds pretty scummy, and said, I'd like for you to work with our Justice Department and look into it. And the Democrats impeached him over it. The Democrats impeached Donald Trump for saying, this looks bad to me. I want this looked at. The calls you just heard on this podcast, those calls, the transcripts of those calls make up the basis of what ultimately convinced Donald Trump to want this investigated. Not just what we knew publicly, which was Joe Biden bragging about all this. Like everything you just heard, that whole process, Joe Biden bragged about it on U.S. soil at the Council on Foreign Relations. We've all seen, we played it at the beginning of the show. Joe Biden confessed to all of this.
You know that Facebook and Twitter block that as fake news.
Yeah, they block that as fake news. It's just like the joebiden.info.
So there's another thing that keeps going around that they've weaponized social media for, and that is this mask issue. I want to come back to the Biden issue real quick, but I want to say this, that it doesn't matter what we're talking about. Nothing is off limits. I mean, they can say anything is fake news.
Yeah.
And right, which is why we are so careful what we say and how we say it on this.
And that's why we get into it. We say that this is alleged because obviously this is just breaking in the last hour.
Right.
So we have to say that this is alleged. But when you listen to it, it's Joe Biden.
But when the Ukrainian president comes out and records it on his side, you got to believe that he is basically giving everyone the middle finger, saying, you know what, you got me, you forced my hand. You know, economically, our country needed this loan guarantee. We did exactly what you said we'd do. Now everyone needs to know that the real culprit, the real evildoer here, is you, Joe Biden, is you. President Obama. I mean, I'm sorry, but neither one of them has unclean hands, and neither does their establishment. I mean, do you remember the Loretta Lynch with Bill?
Yeah, going on to Bill Clinton's plane. Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's not a big deal. It's not a big deal," but it was a big deal. It
was a big deal. Yeah.
But nobody did anything. There are so many times people that you or I or anyone else would go straight to prison. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. You're going straight to prison. And these people can do whatever they want. They act with impunity. And that American people have to sit back and watch as we get hit with sticks, right? The stick and carrots. Well, if you do what you're supposed to do and you stay in your house, we'll throw $1,200 your way. Right? Yeah. But if you don't stay in your house, we're going to beat you with it. We're going to arrest you, and we're going to arrest the moms and watch the kids throw the moms on the ground at playgrounds because you want your kids to play outside, right? We're going to do that. To you.
Yeah. It's So there's two things of what you just said that are important that I want to reiterate. This was recorded on the Ukrainian side.
Love that.
So this was someone in that room who works with Poroshenko, who understood this is shady as hell.
Right. We
should probably document this. And make no mistake, if they had the ability to use this to their advantage with blackmail, they probably would have done it. We've talked about how the FBI went to Trump and said that Michael Flynn was blackmailable and you had to fire him because he could be blackmailed. This is the kind of stuff that could be used to blackmail Joe Biden. Because I guarantee you this isn't the only thing out there that exists. So one, it was recorded on the Ukrainian side. You mentioned Loretta Lynch on the tarmac. What's really surprised me as we've dived in to all of the crimes that have been committed by the Obama administration, what's really surprised me is how top down it's been. Usually with calls like this, it's the undersecretary of state makes the call, not John Kerry making the first call to set up a call between the vice president, right? It's usually not the vice president himself bouncing around who should be this country's general prosecutor. It's usually lower people in the State Department. It gets bounced around there, moves up to the Secretary of State. They get involved, and then they ultimately get involved with the vice president just to have him sign it, right? It's very rare to see the Attorney General go on the tarmac and meet with Bill Clinton while his wife is under investigation. Very uncommon for Brennan and Clapper to be unmasking people in Trump's campaign, right? Very uncommon for Joe Biden to be making these, we just listened to 3 phone calls. And it was basically talking about the inner workings of Ukrainian justice system, right? As we've seen this, as we've seen it, the reason that Lynch went on the plane with Clinton was because she had a personal stake in it, right? She didn't want to see Hillary Clinton prosecuted, so she wanted to meet with Bill Clinton. The reason that you see Joe Biden doing the same is he had a personal stake in this. The guy that he pressured them to fire was investigating his son's company. We know that he knew that because the State Department put together talking points just in case anyone asked about the fact that Joe Biden's son was working with Burisma. It was well known. We've seen that he was out golfing with his son and another Burisma board member. You can't say that he didn't know about this. He knew about this. And to see him get so involved at an almost molecular level of, well, do you think it would be okay if we do this? No, but you also need to change this law to make sure that this position has more power. He's talking about the Ukrainian judicial and legal system and the legislative system. That's not what this vice president's supposed to be doing. So the fact that he's doing it, it's clear, as we've seen all the other abuses of power in the Obama administration, it's clear he had a very personal stake in this.
Hey, so here's a couple questions here that came up, right? Someone asked, what can we, the people, do to accelerate? What can us, the people, help to accelerate justice? You can start standing up.
Yeah. Well, on a very low level, share the video. Keep sharing the video because the media is going to try and cover this up. So if you get people seeing this, they're not going to be able to ignore it. So definitely hit the share button on this video because we went through the entire thing. And keep going.
But you have to be willing to talk about it, right? And you have to talk about it even when it's not popular to talk about. Even when your friends are like, I really like Joe Biden, which I don't even know who could actually like that guy.
I have not met a single Biden supporter. I've met people who said they'll vote for him. I have not met anyone who owns a t-shirt, who owns a hat, who's like excited about it. Yeah, no, I've never met one.
Yeah. So, but even when it's unpopular, you have to be willing to stand up. You have to be willing to talk about what is truly happening. Right. And sooner or later, they're going to try and whitewash it. They're going to try and make excuses. They're going to say, oh, that's really not what happened. That's not real news. Quickly, let's send it over to the fact checkers and see if they can weaponize technology so that we can take this down because we don't want anybody to know the truth. Right.
Yeah.
The more people actually stand up and have a conversation and talk about this with courage. Right. It takes courage because you're going to get bashed because the people that want to stand on the far left, and I'm not talking about traditional liberals, because let's be honest, there's a lot of traditional liberals that you would consider pretty close to being conservative or right. And the thing that separates about 80% of the population is mostly social issues, and it's typically single social issues, right? So if we can actually just get the 80% of the people that are actually marginalized and get rid of the loony left all the way to the far left and the loony right all the way to the far right. And when I mean far right, I don't mean people that have, I'm talking about the people that they put in the alt-right. Right. So I think that if we as people just start standing up and talking about it, saying it's not right, and we're not afraid, and we have stamina, we have the ability to stop making this all right, I'm going to go on Saturday. I'm going to spend 2 hours actually protesting this. That it actually becomes a part of your life, that you actually take an interest in what's happening in your communities and what's happening in Congress and what's happening to even affected on the local level to the state level to the national level. You have to take an interest in it, and you have to hold people accountable. And frankly, you got to be okay with somebody calling you out and calling you names and saying, "Hey, look, that's not really what happened." I mean, I know that's what you think happened. That's not really what happened.
Peggy Short just wrote in, LOL, I've never seen a Biden shirt. Neither have I. The only Biden shirts I've seen are the ones making fun of Biden. I've yet to see any actual Biden fanboy. Louisa just wrote in, just joined in. What's going on? You can rewind the podcast. We just played an entire 11-minute audio clip of actually a couple different phone calls of Kerry and Biden talking to the Ukrainian president, and Biden basically putting the pressure on, and the Ukrainian president admitting that he was doing Biden's bidding in order to get $1 billion, even though the prosecutor that he fired, in his opinion, did nothing wrong. So definitely, if you haven't listened, rewind it.
Yeah, he literally said he did nothing wrong. No impropriety at all. But in order to get our $1 billion in loan guarantees, we're going to relent and we're going to, ruin that guy's life too. See, there is no conscience in people who are sociopaths. And we have so many sociopaths inside of our government. The double standard just on the Joe Biden side with the Tara
Reid,
Tara Reid is unbelievable.
Oh yeah, no, they bury everything.
But this isn't even burying it. I mean, think about what they did to Tara. Just think about what they did. First of all, it affected her so much the fact that she had these aspirations. She was working in his congressional office. She really just, that was a path that she wanted to take, that it affected her marriage.
Yeah.
It came in the divorce decree.
So when they said Tara Reid has no evidence of it, it came up, as you said, in the divorce paperwork. Her neighbor came forward and said, yeah, she told me the story at the time. I don't know whether it actually happened, but she told me about it. Her neighbor then got threatened.
Right.
It's incredible what the left and the media are doing to try and circle the wagons to protect Joe Biden. They truly believe he's untouchable. And this is where I think this is a real bombshell, because the contents of this call would only be in three places. It would be in the intelligence community, if they still had it, if they had intercepted this. It would obviously be on the Ukrainian side. And then this would be in Joe Biden or Barack Obama's presidential, vice presidential papers, their documents. Like when we talked about how Joe Biden doesn't want anyone to see what's going on at the University of Delaware, this conversation is in that file in Delaware that he doesn't want anyone to see, because he knows that if everyone got to see what's in the file in Delaware, or wherever his vice presidential files are, he knows that if everyone got to see that, it would hurt his election chances. So when Bill Barr comes out yesterday at that press conference and says that he doesn't see evidence to suggest that Joe Biden should be charged criminally, I don't think that Bill Barr had that call.
No, I definitely don't think he had that call.
I don't think he had that call.
There's no way he had that call. No way he had that call. If he had that call, even in light of the fact that if you're a government worker, you are treated differently than any other American people, any other American, right? If he would have had that call, you would have had to have paused.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't think that the people have yelled loud enough that Biden needs to be prosecuted, that this is a real problem.
It is.
I don't think people that are normal people, that marginalized group of people in the middle. First of all, you have a certain portion of people that are Democrats that literally are just like, hey, I can't attack my own party. I can't do that. What do we do every day, Max? Like, we call people out. We don't care if you're a Democrat. We don't care if you're a Republican. Look, if you don't stand up for the people, if you don't do the things that are right for the community, we'll call you out.
Yeah.
We've gotten phone calls from people from Congress
saying, hey, lay off.
Saying, hey, cut it out.
Yeah, you're supposed to be on our side. Stop.
I'm not on anybody's side. I'm for my neighbor.
Yeah.
I'm for the guy across the street. I'm for my kids and my grandkids. I'm for my family. I'm for people I don't even know.
Yeah.
That's what I'm for. Right? I don't care. And we get how about the death threats, Max?
Yeah.
How about the death threats? And however they got my cell number, calling me at 6:00 in the morning saying, I'm going to come kill you and your family. And I'm like, well, first of all, you'd have to wear a mask. Then you'd have to come back. Right?
Yeah.
And
good luck doing that while you socially distance.
Yeah. But we have this, we constantly are having this conversation about the weak left, and people on the right talk about the fact that I got threatened. The death threats. I got to call the police. Man, don't call the police.
Yeah.
I know what we do. You know what we do? We arm ourselves, and we're already armed because we believe in this thing called the Constitution.
I just get so infuriated by the fact that Donald Trump heard about this. Again, I don't think he had access to this call because it was either in the intelligence community or it was with Biden and Obama's vice presidential papers that are going to be going to their vice president and presidential libraries. That's where those are. I don't think that Trump had this recording, but he had heard about it because we knew that Rudy Giuliani was over in Ukraine investigating this. Right? Remember when the media was trying to get Rudy Giuliani strung up on treason charges for going over and investigating this? We knew that he knew about this. And all Donald Trump said on that horrible transcript was that he heard he heard what Joe Biden did, and it sounded, what did he say, awful or terrible. And he wanted Ukraine to work with the DOJ as they look into it. That was enough to get him impeached, and the Democrats to this day want Donald Trump to be prosecuted for what they say is bribery. He said that's bribery. They want him prosecuted if he happens to lose in November. And yet here we have Joe Biden on tape bribing a foreign official with money he has no right to use to influence, pressuring Ukraine.
Gary just said this. He goes, Barr does not want to prosecute Biden or Obama because he doesn't want to interfere in the 2020 election. He's right? So we do want to bring this back just one step and say, look, he probably didn't have access to this recording. That's probably true. But Barr is probably taking a more measured approach because he doesn't want to create chaos around the 2020 election. And I'm not sure that I agree with that, but I'm not sure I can disagree with it either, given the fact that the Democrats have put their best foot forward, and that is Joe Biden. The however old he is, dementia-ridden individual who honestly can't remember. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Joe Biden sitting on his floor in his room, right, playing with Legos.
Yeah,
like that to me is something that probably could happen.
No,
right?
Legos are too advanced. He'd be with Mega Blocks. He'd be with the Mega Blocks.
And for anyone of the age of 3.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand that. I can understand the argument. I don't want to prosecute them because there's an election. But what precedent does that set? That if you commit a crime, all you need to do is to run for public office and you can't be prosecuted, right? At the same time, if that's the standard, then we're just going to have criminals running for office. That's the consequence of saying that. More criminals. Yeah. No, but I mean like actual criminals, like people say I'm being investigated. I better go file paperwork down with the FEC and then they can't touch me. I mean, we can't have that as a standard. So I understand the idea that you don't want the FBI jumping in and investigating criminally people that are running. But at the same time, the statute of limitations is ticking, right? These calls happened in February, March, and May of 2016, right? My understanding is that the statute of limitations on crime like this is 5 years, unless you were to try and hit him with like treason or something. But this would be 5 years.
It's actually 5 years from the time of which you actually discover it.
Well, we discovered what he did the minute he admitted to it on tape, right?
Right.
The extra evidence.
We have plenty of time, but we have plenty of time.
But still, the statute of limitations is ticking. And if Joe Biden was to win the presidency, the statute of limitations, no matter when you start it, 2016 or 2017, or even 2018, the statute of limitations would expire before the end of his first term.
All right.
So,
Can we do something real quick?
Yeah.
I want to see if we can overload the system. So I want everyone that's listening to do something. I want you to go to joebiden.info.
No, don't do it. It'll.
Hold on. It'll probably break it. But listen, I want everybody listening to go to joebiden.info. So this is a satire site. We talked about this yesterday.
Yeah.
But it's a satire site that actually has a lot of truth to it. Now, I want you to take the URL on the top of joebiden.info, and I want you to put it inside of Facebook. And
don't do it. You'll get banned. Don't do it.
You will not get banned. You'll not get banned.
All right.
What will happen, though? What will happen is that it will say, error. You cannot share this. This is dangerous information.
Yeah.
That should show you. Yeah. That should show you just by itself how really just screwed up and just off kilter everything is, because this is a satire site. So no longer can you actually have truth.
Yeah.
And they didn't do anything to disparage him. They just said, oh, poor Joe, right? Poor Joe. And pictures of him smelling people's hair and grabbing people's hands and getting really uncomfortably close to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then it shared some real information. But you see that
if you try and share that URL on Facebook, Facebook won't let you do it because they say it's too dangerous. It's shameful, which is why we say to make sure that you hit the share button on this video, because we went through the whole audio recording, start to finish.
So our producer Josh, he put it inside the URL and says, "What's on your mind?" and put the URL in it, and it won't let him do anything. It's like, yeah, we don't even recognize it.
Yeah. It's crazy stuff, and they're gonna try and memory hole this. They're gonna try and memory hold this, like cover up this audio recording of Joe Biden literally discussing a quid pro quo, literally saying, if you do this for me, I will give you this. And the guy saying, well, I'll fire him even though he did nothing wrong. And then saying, okay, I've done everything you've asked, Joe Biden. Will you give me the $1 billion now? It's a quid pro quo. 100%. They're going to try and hide this too. So if you haven't already, hit the share button. If you haven't liked our page yet, we go live with stuff like this. Not as big as this, but we go live with videos, podcasts every day. Make sure you like our page. It's in the description on the Facebook live stream, as well as places that you can subscribe to the daily podcast if you have an iPhone or an Android. That's to receive the audio recording, because the left is going to do everything they can. That joebiden.info URL is just the tip of the spear.
I
right?
love poking that one though. That's the pair I like to poke.
Well,
If I can't write it, let me at least tell people. Go to
Yeah.
joebiden.info.
Yeah, it's and you know there's going to be more like that. The fact that they've figured out how anytime someone types in that URL, joebiden.info, that we just won't let it share it, they're going to do it for other things. And listen, we've heard the recordings from inside of Google after the 2016 election of people saying, and these are recordings out there, I think Breitbart posted them, that we didn't do enough, that we should have done more to stop Trump. And you see what they've done over the last 3-4 years to silence people, to deplatform people, to make it harder for information like what we're sharing today to organically reach other people, which is why we continually ask people to hit that share button, because Facebook is going to do everything they can to stop people from organically, naturally finding today's podcast. So if you can, hit that share button, because this is bombshell stuff. Biden admitted to it. He admitted to it. We already had that video. He's then on audio recording, asking for it, pressuring. The Ukrainians accept it and say, okay, we'll do this for you. And then beg him to give them the money that now they've done everything he asked. And he had no business doing this. Joe Biden had no business involving himself in the inner workings at this level of the Ukrainian government. The only explanation in my mind is that he had a personal connection to this, which we already knew, that the prosecutor he wanted replaced was going after his son's company. This is the scandal. Not Donald Trump saying that this should be investigated. This is what should be investigated.
And herein lies the problem. At some point we have to be able to stand up and say, all right, we've had enough. That's been good. I'm good.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard now because all of the congressional offices are closed, but you can still raise hell over this. Share this video. Make sure as many people see this as possible, and then contact your congressman, contact your senator,
and vote
like it matters.
If you don't think voting matters, right? If you don't think voting matters, voting absolutely matters. It matters 100%. Vote.
Yeah.
Vote like your life depends on it, because it does. And tell everyone else to vote. Everyone that you know to vote, unless they vote for Joe Biden.
Yeah, unless you vote for Joe Biden.
Then please take a holiday.
No, well, we can't say that. We can't say that because that's against Facebook's terms of service. We can't lie about when the election date is. So the election day is the election day.
I can joke about it a little bit. Okay.
No, people who joke about it. People post memes that say today's election day for Republicans, tomorrow's election day for Democrats, and they get like kicked off of Facebook now. If you post that, you get deplatformed completely. So
I cannot even believe a world where people would actually believe that.
Yeah. It's right? Clear. It's clearly funny, but obviously they use that against them. It's I don't know. I'm my head's still spinning about this because this is the phone call we never should have seen. And as we mentioned, this would be in Joe Biden's vice presidential papers, the papers that are under lock and key. I was wrong when I said they would be at the University of Delaware. They might be there. I don't know. The University of Delaware has his Senate papers. These would be in his vice presidential papers that would go into his vice presidential library. They're under lock and key, I'm pretty sure, until he dies or until he completely leaves public life for an X amount of time. Joe Biden has already said that if we all were able to look into his papers, at least on the Senate side, that they'd be used to take him out in the election. He's already admitted that if we saw what he was doing when he was in office, that it would come back to bite him. This is one of those examples. Again, this wouldn't be in his Senate papers; it'd be in his vice presidential papers. Which why it's such it's so criminal to think that not only would he do this, and not only would it get covered up, but then we'd know that stuff like this is out there, but we're not allowed to listen to it because it would be unfair to him. No, it would be unfair to the American people to put someone like this in power again. Because we've seen what he did on his test run as vice president. The vice presidency has very little power in this country. You become president if the president's incapacitated, and you go to the Senate and you break a tie. That's it. Other than that, the vice presidency is pretty much just an honorary role. To see what Joe Biden was doing, not only was he going beyond what he should have been doing, but he was doing it to help his family. He was bribing foreign officials with IMF aid. You can't let that man anywhere near power. We've seen what it did. It corrupted him absolutely. He's having conversations about who should be the general prosecutor in Ukraine because the last one was going after his son. This man can't be anywhere near power. And the fact that this is just a drop in the bucket, I guarantee there's dozens of other clips like this in his Senate papers, in his vice presidential papers that we're not supposed to see, that we're not allowed to see, that we have to know that this stuff exists, but we're being told to vote for him anyway. That is the scandal.
Among scandals.
That's one of the scandals.
Yeah, it just seems like there's one after, and that's just because by the way, they don't care. I mean, the sociopaths just don't care. They don't understand right versus wrong. They just don't, and that can't be an excuse for their behavior. But once we realize that we're dealing with people who are sociopaths that don't care about you, it makes it a whole lot easier to make decisions to put other people in the positions that they're in that do care about you and your neighbor.
Yeah.
And the people in your community. And I think that's where we need to get to. We just need to get to the place where we can accept the fact that they're just a bunch of dirtbags.
Well, they're a bunch of dirtbags, and he wants to run on his experience as vice president, but he wants to shape it. He wants to spin it to be the best narrative possible for his reelection, right? For the last couple months, they've been spinning this pressure against Ukraine as Joe Biden was doing his duty and he was doing what every other country wanted. I guarantee you that Angela Merkel was not, she got name dropped in the beginning. I guarantee Angela Merkel was not on calls with Poroshenko saying, well, what if you did this person? What if you appointed this person? What if you changed the law in Ukraine? I guarantee you that Merkel was not on calls like that because heads of state don't do that. They don't do that. So it is criminal. It is criminal to think that Joe Biden has other tapes like this out there and that we're not allowed to see them.
We're out of place. We're at a place. I keep telling you, everybody, we're at a place. We're at a place. We're at a place. We're at a place in history where our armed forces are going to have to make a decision on who they support. We're at a place where we're going to have to make a decision as a country what we're willing to stand up for and what we're willing to sacrifice in order to get it to where the people have control again, right? And the people have accountability because we haven't had accountability for decades.
Yeah,
it's decades of no accountability. And you could say, we had Bush in office and, since Reagan, no accountability. Before Reagan, lack of accountability. I mean, I could talk about some of the stuff. We can go way back in time and talk about some of the things that happened during Carter's years and even Kennedy's years. There has been a huge lack of accountability.
Yeah.
Right. And we have been, as American people, kept in line with sticks. They've been beaten.
And usually what happens is people come into power, they abuse the system, and then they go into private life. This is one of the very few moments. I mean, I guess Hillary Clinton would be another example, but this is a unique moment where Joe Biden is trying to get another crack at it, right? And we are able to see the full extent now of the criminality of what we've suspected was there. This wasn't just a by the book State Department measure. John Kerry set up the call, and then Joe Biden took it and ran with it. So, as I said before, Joe Biden cannot be anywhere near the White House. Because if he gets back in power, you can guarantee that things like this are going to happen. Well, we're up against the end of the episode, but if you're just coming on to the Facebook live stream, people are asking where the audio is. You can rewind the live stream and watch it from the beginning. We go through Joe Biden, his confession, and then we play the whole 11 minutes of audio that just leaked. So you can rewind it and find it. If this is your first time finding our podcast, welcome. Great to have you. Please make sure that you go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Conservative Daily, and give us a follow, give us a like, because that will help the algorithms present our podcast to you on your newsfeed when we go live. We go live with the show every single day, every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make sure that you like our Facebook page. Also, in the description for this Facebook live stream, I have the links for you to be able to subscribe to our podcast, whether you use an iPhone or an Android phone, to be able to subscribe to the audio version of the podcast as we release it. And lastly, there is a link for you to subscribe to our daily newsletter or alerts. If you want to, every day we put out an alert calling people's attention to something going on in DC that is very important that the mainstream media doesn't want you to know about. So there's a link to subscribe to the newsletter, subscribe to receive the audio podcast, and do make sure that you like our page and follow us so that you'll get these live streams on your Facebook newsfeed as they happen. Well, that's going to be it for this edition of the Conservative Daily Podcast. Again, you can find us on the Google Play Store, Apple Podcasts. We're on the Podbean app, as well as conservative-daily.com/podcast. Oh, that's a mouthful. Please go there, subscribe. It really helps as we grow this. So again, my name is Max McGuire.
And this is Joe Otto.
And remember, the fight to take back our country isn't over. But now that we're seeing what's going on, the only way we can win is if we all fight together.